Welcome back, everyone. We are approaching 1 year in me owning this 2022 Ford F250. First things first, I want to kind of give a general overview. So by the exact 1 year mark, it'll be almost exactly 20,000 miles on it. That seems to be about the amount of miles I put on a truck every year, which is a lot, at least by kind of average Joe standards. Maybe not if you're running a business or using the truck every single minute of your workday. But for the guy who's commuting to work, primarily with other vehicle, not this truck, to then put 20,000 miles on, it's pretty high. In that 20,000 miles, I figure the way it works out is about half of my mileage is towing and half is hauling or empty. I would say half towing, quarter hauling a legitimate load, say 500 pounds or more, and then the other half is just kind of more truly empty, like I'm just driving myself and my dog on a vacation or whatever, right? So I'm really using the truck as a truck most of the time. So within that 20,000 miles, I've done a ton of different things, as far as, again, towing and just strapping down different loads in the bed and, putting different things in the bed that I used to put in my half-ton Silverado. So I've got that direct comparison. And then I've also got the comparison of just, in general, any other truck that I've driven. And I've driven a lot of the newer trucks, tons of the 14 to 18 half-ton Silverados, the 19 up stuff, a couple F150s and things here and there, definitely a decent amount of Rams. So I've got a pretty good, well-rounded, at least the big three. I can't really say I've driven a Toyota or a Nissan. A couple of things I've noticed that we've run into with this Ford, for the better and the worse. Overall, really liked owning this truck so far. Zero regrets. I think it is a phenomenally well-designed platform overall. And if you go on YouTube, there's so many videos you can find that nitpick every little thing, and all this buttons not in the right place, and that Ford did blah blah blah. They raised MSRP. They took out this feature, and I get all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, the running mantra is, trucks have gotten so expensive. They're unaffordable. They cost too much money. And while I agree that trucks have gotten shockingly expensive, don't misunderstand me when I say that. The thing that nobody talks about and nobody understands, or at least nobody wants to communicate, is that the amount of functionality that you're getting with a modern truck, it's just unparalleled. And I can already hear somebody in the comments saying, my 2000 5.4 gas F250 is amazing. And listen, as a 2005 Silverado owner with 253,000 miles on it, I agree with you. I love the early 2000s, mid 2000s trucks. I love the 90s trucks. I'm right there with you. But let's not fool ourselves. We've got in this specific truck, we've got a 430 horsepower, 475 foot-pound of torque, gas V8, very simple engine design, push rod engine design, but a 10-speed transmission. And that combination just gives you a level of performance that even the most built-out 456 rear gear, 4-speed auto, 6-liter gas or Chevy or 5.4 Ford, or V10 might give it a run for its money, but you're just not gonna get the same performance, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that V10 F250 is not doing what you need it to do, but the modern performance is just truly unparalleled. And if you're looking for that, it's great. Now, another factor is, as much as people by modern standards look at the fuel economy of these trucks and say, wow, your fuel economy is terrible, well, guess what? For a gas-powered 250 series truck, the fuel economy this thing gets is actually incredible. I mean, it's a 7.3 liter gas engine, and unless you're towing a trailer, you almost can't make it worse than 11 miles per gallon city and 13, 14 highway. That's your floor. And I mean, that might not sound good, but if you've driven my 6 liter that I put in my half-ton Silverado, not even a 3/4 ton, gets the same mileage as this thing, and it's got 342 gears, so it's not like it's got a really high, low gear ratio. So I mean, the fuel economy that this 1,000+ pound heavier truck is getting empty and then also towing compared to that 6-liter in the half-ton Silverado. It's just way better. I mean, the technology is far better. And again, I love old LSs, older LS motors. I love them. I will probably own that truck for the rest of my life. I'm not talking it down. I'm just accepting the reality that is the fact that technology moves along, whether we like it or not sometimes, and there are some benefits. But anyway, all of that to say, I really, really, really enjoy the drivetrain of this truck. That's what it boils down to. The overall drivetrain experience is better than anything before it, and is truly, world class, for lack of a better term. And I think that's proven by the fact that these trucks are sold like hotcakes. There's plenty of guys running around in F550s and 600s and 650s with the 7.3, with either a 10 or a 6-speed, and they're all very happy with it. My buddy runs his dumpster company with them, and we all like them. So there's some evidence there. Now, that being said, for the time period, I also loved the drivetrain of that Silverado. But the issue sometimes with a vehicle, and a lot of guys with Cummins, earlier year Cummins will say this, it's the rest of the truck around it. And that's the thing that I think Ford did an absolute amazing job on compared to previous years. So like 6.0 Power Strokes. Always loved the 6.0 Power Stroke. Is that dumb? Maybe, but I've just always liked them. But, and this is just my opinion, I think the interior in those trucks, unless you get a King Ranch, but even the King Ranch, the interior in those trucks is just a whole step behind a similar year Chevy. And just like comfort and quietness and just overall build quality feel. I mean, they had just this like smooth plastic dashes that made me want to throw up when I got inside. And I just couldn't ever see myself buying a 6.0 Power Stroke era Ford because of that. But anyway, the interior of this truck, in my opinion, is just so dialed. And especially compared to similar year Chevys. I think Rams will give it a run for its money. But even so, I think this is the class-leading interior. Part of the reason I bought this truck was really two big reasons, was interior and drivetrain. And the reason I say that is, I know people think it looks stupid, but I actually find that the little dip in the door really does help for visibility. When I'm driving a 3/4 or 1-ton Chevy, nobody really talks about this, but these things are all hard enough to see out of as it is with the bigger A-pillars and whatnot and these giant mirrors. That little dip, I find, makes it a lot less of a likelihood that I have a blind spot for like a smaller car like a Mazda Miata and stuff like that. And the seats, I find to be, even though this is an XLT model, it's nothing special, these seats are incredibly comfortable, and they are the right amount of firmness so that you're not flying around the seat if you are taking corners slightly aggressively, but they're still soft and cushy and they absorb you for those long road trips. They're just really well designed. It's that simple. And just like all the electronics and the gauge cluster and stuff and the screen, not that they're anything special, like other brands have done a good job, but Fords are, let's say, equal, if not better, than some other brands, in my opinion. And you then combine that with the fact that, like, I really like the way they did the HVAC setup, just some pretty simple dials, but you got a couple buttons there, there's a lot of different options. I really love how the remote start automatically sets your climate control, even though this is a lower trim truck. That's like a super nice feature, actually. The fact that it has the app connectivity and I don't have to pay a monthly subscription, super nice. There's just really, like, again, yes, trucks are very expensive, but there is a good value package you're getting, even on the more base model trucks like this. This is an XLT Premium, which is, you figure that's like 3 or 4 trims up from the bottom, and there's 20 freaking trim levels if you account for the name of the trim and then the kind of sub packages inside that trim. There's probably 20 different configurations, if not more. So this is pretty low on the totem pole, and it's still got some really nice features. And if you don't use some of this stuff, like if you just don't care about remote start, you don't care about heated seats, whatever it is, obviously you can down trim the truck more. Well, they all have remote start with the app, but you can down trim the truck more. But I do think, the market has spoken, and people are buying these features, obviously, for a reason, good or bad, they are buying them. And, I just think that if you do have it, you might find, wow, this is actually kind of nice, because I've definitely done that, right? I don't have remote start on that Silverado. I found that I really like it. I don't use it a ton, but I really like it for certain scenarios. So the other big thing as an owner that I've loved about this truck is the aluminum body. And aside from corrosion resistance, which I wouldn't have ran into in 1 year of ownership anyway, but that's a thing that's in my back pocket. I really loved that this is all aluminum for that reason. But putting that aside, I just enjoy the aluminum body for like some stupid reasons. It's super light, so like doors and stuff are easy to shut. Like my brother's got a steel body, you know, the late steel body, like 2013 Super Duty, and it's fine, but the doors are friggin' 18 million pounds. My Silverado's doors don't close well, they're heavy. I don't know, it's just like slightly more convenient. I found the interior quietness to be super good, which is actually, in spite of the aluminum transfers sound better than steel. Tailgate's nice and light, and I don't have the assisted tailgate. Like just some little stuff like that. If you want to drill holes in the bed and mount things to the bed of the truck, you're not drilling into steel, and you don't have to worry as much about like trying to paint it or make sure you don't have rust creep up in that bare steel where you drill the hole. I love the position and the function of the toggle switches. I actually have 3 components ran to my overhead switches. I think a lot of people on the non-commercial side don't use those, but I have my little exhaust flap deal wired to 2 of them, and then I also have my auxiliary fuel tank wired to 1. So for me, those are important things that I like having, and it's nice. I don't have to run my own switches. And like Ram and Chevy have switches as well, but I don't know, and this is just me being old school, but there's something nice about flicking an actual mechanical toggle switch and not just an electronically controlled switch. Like, I just love that. And I don't know, it's just kind of fun. You reach up there and all your switches are right there. The Chevys are kind of buried at the bottom of the dash, underneath the climate controls, which again, perfectly functional. Ram's the same way. Not putting them down. I just prefer this. One of the biggest things I like that people probably don't think of is the interior storage space. The door panels have like infinite amounts of little cubbies on them, which is super convenient. And there's just so many, like the passenger side dash area has not only the regular glove box, but also has the upper glove box, the rear underseat storage. There's just a lot of room there. There's just a lot of, Ford really kind of took every nook and cranny of this thing and tried to make it as good as possible for people from a storage perspective. And that really helps when you're kind of like me, and I don't want to run a saddle toolbox in the bed because I do a lot of stuff with the bed that requires the length of it, and I didn't want a long bed right around. So for me, if I can avoid putting tools back there and keep them in the cab, you know, I also keep like a multimeter in here, and I actually keep an oscilloscope in here because I'm a nerd. But those are the types of items that, you know, they will, you know, they're going to get affected by the weather worse. So if they're in the interior, they at least stay warmer. Obviously, if the truck's parked for a while, they're not going to be all that warm, but they'll be better. So that's always good. And then just in general, this truck handles, I mean, it's a big, heavy truck, but it handles really well in the snow, which is critical to me, you know, for days like today. And just the fact that I live in the snow belt. We'll circle back into the corrosion protection thing. The powder-coated frame and aluminum body compared to Chevy's using steel, body panels. At least the cab is steel. The doors and stuff are aluminum, but the cab is steel. And then a wax-coated frame. It just isn't as good for corrosion protection. Unfortunately, that really turned me off to buying a Chevy. And then Ram is kind of the in-between. They powder coat the frame or whatever, but they don't do the, all aluminum body panels, right? So I like that. Some people don't like the all aluminum. I understand it's a little bit more expensive if you get in an accident and whatnot. It's been around long enough. I think that if that was that much of an issue, people would have been screaming from the rafters about it. I know when the F-150s in 2015 came out with it, there was a little bit of controversy, but it's fine. I think. So anyway, just like a lot of good stuff there. I just think you're getting a really good overall package. You know, Ford's had its quality issues. I really haven't encountered them. The only quality issue I had with this truck, I bought it used with 34,000 miles. It has 53.8 now. The only quality issue I've had is the passenger side door lock would intermittently not unlock. And I took it to the dealer. They replaced the door lock under warranty. I paid essentially $0. There is actually $100. People don't know there's a $100 like copay or whatever with the like GM or the Ford Gold certified warranty. Which whatever. I paid $82. I don't know how it worked out to 82, but I really didn't care. And they replaced that door lock for me. It's been fine ever since. The only other issue I've had actually, the one door mirror when I would do the power fold was a little bit sticky. I think it was the driver's side, and I just sprayed some lubricant in there, Crown actually, and that freed that up. Just worked it through a couple times. The motor and everything's fine. I just think it was a little bit corroded or something. But that's it. No other issues. It's been super solid. The only other ownership negative experience I would say that I've had is a couple things. These 10 speeds in the Fords, shifting on a cold engine from like drive to reverse and stuff, they just clunk into gear pretty hard. There's actually a TSB out on it. It's fine. It is what it is. It's not really going to hurt anything. It's just annoying. It doesn't make you feel, it's not confidence inspiring. They also, they do once in a while have a grumpy shift. You'll be doing a 1 to 3 skip shift. It'll kind of rev up, and again, especially on a cold engine, cold trans, and it'll just be, and it'll just like downshift hard or upshift hard, shake the truck a little bit, and you're like, what the heck? And then it's just perfectly fine for literally thousands of miles after that. So I don't know what that's all about. The four-wheel drive system in Ford sucks, in my opinion. Hear me out. Ram does not have unlocking hubs. They just have an axle disconnect, and they actually had years where they had nothing, which is nice because it engages faster. Chevy has always had an axle disconnect, and they've always had really quickly engaging four-wheel drive, and it always engages nice and smooth. And I think by far Chevy has the best four-wheel drive system from an engagement and user interface perspective. I'm not talking toughness, although I've never had an issue with mine in the Silverado. But the engagement time and smoothness leaves something to be desired for Ford. The whole vacuum hub crap I think is stupid. I've always thought it was stupid. I think they should have gotten rid of it many years ago. I hate vacuum lines in vehicles any more than you absolutely have to have for engine function. They corrode, they get dry rotted, they break, they rub on stuff, you lose your vacuum, you gotta go trace down a friggin' vacuum leak. It's just annoying. Anyway, you can manually lock them in, so it's not a huge deal. The bigger deal is if you get into this in-between state, especially if like somebody else is driving your truck and doesn't understand, and they lock in a hub or think the hub's locked in, with the auto locking hubs, four-wheel drive, if they're a little bit lazy and they really hit the gas, now they're going to spin the splines in the hub on the axle side and the hub side, and they're going to friggin' rip that hub to shreds, and you're going to have to put, whatever, $300 into a new hub or whatever they cost nowadays. So that's just annoying to me and an unnecessary feature. I'd rather just have an axle disconnect and let the axle spin. I don't really care if I lose a fraction of a mile per gallon on my 2500 series truck, but feel free to disagree with me on that one in the comments. What's funny is I find the solid axle trucks, believe it or not, to actually ride smoother, because I find that the Chevy 2500s and 3500s are so cranked up, torsion bars, even from the factory, that they're so stiff. They have no travel. They should handle better, but they don't. I was shocked when I drove one. I test drove one, and I'd driven my parents' diesel 2023, and they're stiff, man. They ride hard. Overall, great truck. Great ownership experience so far. Really, really, really looking forward to how this truck does past 50,000 miles. I'm curious to see when we start hitting the 75,000 mile mark, the 100,000 mile mark, how things fare. My goal with this truck, and I'm not going to assign a mileage to it, but like I did with the Silverado, my goal is to drive it until it is becoming unreliable enough that I feel as though going on long trips towing, I'm putting myself at risk of breaking down. The difference is with my Silverado, I drove it about a year or two past that mark. So my goal with this truck is to find that mark and say, okay, enough is enough. We're trading it in. I'm getting a new one. So I'm hoping that's 200,000 miles, but maybe it's only 150. I don't know. We're gonna see, right? And that's always the test that you don't know until you just do it and find out, but you never really know how long something's going to last, from that perspective. So, a topic that I also need to touch upon, because this is always a huge debate, is the whole gas versus diesel when it comes to these 3/4 and 1 ton trucks. And, do I regret not getting a diesel? I've towed 12,000 pounds one time with this. That was the heaviest load I've done. Pretty really low weights for a 2500 series truck, even a gas one, at least by modern standards. And so for me, as cool as it is to see the big numbers on the diesels and 900 foot-pounds of torque, 1,000, 1,200 with a new high output power stroke, in some sense, other than the vanity of putting your foot to the floor and going faster, empty, or towing, at some point it's just like you're not really getting real world benefit, because this truck has enough power that I can pull hills just fine without screaming the engine with the loads that I have behind it. So if I'm at 2,700 RPM in my gas engine versus 1,600 RPM in my diesel, it's nicer. I'm not putting diesels down. They are definitely better for towing, but I don't know. It just doesn't make enough of a difference to matter to me. Maybe it matters to you. It does not matter to me. So, zero regrets getting the gas truck. If I was towing 10,000 plus pounds every single day, we might be having a different conversation, right? Because that's a whole different thing. But at these weights, the frequency that I do it, towing 7,000 pounds every single day with this truck is a breeze. I don't do that every day, but even if I were to, I wouldn't think anything of it. I have a friend, he's got a dumpster company. He runs Freedom Dumpsters New Hampshire. Not a sponsor, should be a sponsor. He runs F600 and F650 truck primarily for his business. And they're 7.3 10 speeds. Or the one's 7.3 10 speed, the other one's 7.3 6 speed. But they do fine, especially the F600, which is the 10 speed. Hauling, close to GVW, 26K GVW. And they're fine. Gotta have my heated seats, which I have, which is good. I don't mind the cloth. Kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other with cloth versus leather. Cost being no option, I would choose leather. Audio, I really like the audio system in this, despite just being the base trim audio. There's no, it doesn't have like a Bose system or anything like that. It's fine. I'm not an audiophile, but I also don't want to listen to a tin can to hear music. It's clear, it's crisp, the bass is good enough for me. I don't know. It's not something I'm worried about. HVAC's great. A lot of vehicles sometimes have like weak AC or weak heat. This thing will toast you out or freeze you out. So that's good. I absolutely love the fact that we have the excessively large cab and the 6 foot, 10 long bed instead of just a 6.5 foot bed like you had back in the day. And the reason for that is because I've always kind of teetered around with the idea of getting a long bed just for added storage capacity, because when I load this thing up, it gets a little bit tight inside the truck. With my extended cab short bed Silverado, it got tight sometimes. But I just didn't want to turn this thing into an absolute limousine to try to park for when I'm unhooked from the trailer. So this 6'10" bed is a really good compromise. It's a little bit longer than obviously 6.5, which I can feel the difference in real world, like compared to the Silverado. I kind of didn't think I'd even notice the difference, but I think you can. I really do, which is good. And then the interior space just helps compensate for not having a long bed. Like I said earlier, you can store so much stuff inside the cab. You don't really need the long bed so much if you're not cluttering up your pickup bed with tools and different items that you're trying to carry along with you. If you keep that stuff, you really keep that separate for just your utility, add-in use. It makes a big difference. So I think the long bed, although it would be nice when you're actually hauling stuff, I still don't think it's worth the trade-off for my lifestyle. For you, it very well may be. I absolutely hate the fact, though, that I can't get a bigger gas tank. That is my number one complaint. All these trucks are the same with that. 34, 36-ish gallon tanks and a gas 2500, it's not nearly enough. If you tow a lot and you tow a long distance, you're constantly filling the thing up. Honestly, it should. Some people are gonna laugh. It should be double that. I think this idea that range on a truck is okay if it's around 300 to 500 miles empty is a fallacy. range should be 700 or 800 miles empty and like, 300 to 400 towing. 250 bare minimum. And, that might be an unpopular opinion. I don't know if everybody's going to agree with me in saying that, but I think it's important because I don't want to have to stop with a trailer on and find gasoline, which, let's be honest, it's harder to get a trailer through a gas pump than it is a diesel pump, space-wise, typically. If you go to truck stop. So I want to minimize that as much as possible. And if I have a 34-gallon tank and I'm getting 7 or 8 miles per gallon towing a heavier trailer, or God forbid less if it's a real heavy trailer, I'm just constantly trying to maneuver this big, potentially fifth wheel into a regular gas pump. And then you got to really plan out your trips and make sure you're stopping at bigger fueling stations. It's a pain in the ass. So I really, 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 really wish that they just put a 60 to 70 gallon tank on these trucks. That would be the sweet spot. If you saw one of my recent videos, I added a 20-gallon fuel cell that I used to have in my Silverado to the bed of this truck. That gives me 34 plus about 19.3 is what I can fill it to, so we'll call it 53 and change. That's just enough towing. But, I wouldn't hate if it was a little bit more. Especially when you get out west. Which I don't really tow out west, but gas stations get far away sometimes. So anyway, I'll get off that rant. That is what it is. Unfortunately, the manufacturers don't care or understand or think about guys who are towing long distances in a day, I guess. But that is what it is. So anyway, guys, I've yapped on long enough. As always, thanks for watching. God bless America, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.